just have been going through the motions. And when I think about going through the motions, you know what? I forgot my clicker. It seems like, you know, we are like, our life is on cruise control. How many of you have cruise control in your vehicles? I'm getting kind of hot up here. And you know, I mean, how many use the cruise control? You know, and it's good to be able to use those cruise controls, because when you're taking a long trip and you want to just kind of relax when you're driving, you push that cruise control in. But isn't that what life is like sometimes? Is that we're just going down every day, going through the motions, everyday life, and sometimes we don't even stop and think what we're doing. It's just like we get into this routine, we get into our daily habits. How many of you have daily habits? If you're not raising your hand, then you're lying, because we all get up and we hopefully brush our teeth. Thank you very much. We brush our teeth, we comb our hair, and sometimes the wind in Nebraska doesn't help that at all. But the thing is, we get into our daily routines and we go into the motions in our everyday life, and sometimes we don't think about it. And just yesterday I was thinking about how many years I've been here up in Alliance as the pastor of this congregation, and I figured out it has been 7 years already that I've been here. And I'm thinking, 7 years? That's a pretty long time, you know. I guess that's a lot of pastors are looking to take a sabbatical. You know what a sabbatical is? Huh? a rest year. Take time off. Yesterday, you know, I thought, oh, finally I'm going to have a day to myself, and I'm going to be able to relax and work in my yard. Well, first thing you know, I get this phone call. Larry Phelps, remember Larry and Linda Phelps? Some of you remember them. Well, they've been wanting to come up for a long time to get their stuff out of storage. Their stuff been in storage for 4 years. And they're paying this monthly fee for the storage of basically all this stuff that they're gonna sell in yard sales. And I'm thinking, 4 years already, and it doesn't seem that long since they have left. And so they call me up. Larry had come in at 2 o'clock in the morning yesterday morning, and of course I had the key for the storage. Some of you know that they had a washer and dryer, and I got that sold so they can pay some of their storage fees. And then we bought that stove from them and helped them out a little bit financially that way. But he calls me up and says, you know, I'm in town, and can you meet me at the restaurant? I said, okay, what restaurant are you at? You know. And so he said, I said, Cannondale's? He said, yeah. So I ended up going to Cannondale's, and then as I walk up to parking Cannondale's, and I see these 2 people walking down the road, and I go, that looks like Larry. Well, why is he going? And I call out to him, and they didn't answer. Like, I didn't want to embarrass myself and get the wrong people and all this. So I decided to get in my van and go around, drive around, because I saw a trailer and a truck parked over at Grocery Cart. And it was them over there, and so I says, okay, we'll go to the unit and we'll start packing up. Of course, you know, they opened up the unit, and the son, Ty, looks in and goes, man, I don't think we'll be able to get all this stuff in this horse trailer. And so after they got everything loaded up, there was some things that they had to leave behind. And guess what? I got the privilege to take it home and put it in my basement so that we can have it for Young Life yard sale that we plan to do maybe sometime in the spring. Jeff back there is kind of the head of the activities fundraiser committee. And so I called him up yesterday. He came over and we had a nice chat, spent the afternoon together. He did volunteer to take a couple of pieces over to his garage. And I don't know if Carol is too happy about that. But it's just, you know, like, for me, life is not just going through emotions. Like every day something comes up, and I'm pretty excited about what's happening, you know. And I wrote this sermon with the song in mind, Are You Going Through the Motions? And I saved it on my computer, but then when I transferred to my backup file, it said that it already had a sermon with that title. So I had to save it in a different name. But going through the motions, and we've been going to the book of Genesis, just kind of reading through, but we got to this chapter, and I had to say, okay, do I preach on this, or do I kind of let you guys figure out for yourself? Because it is kind of, you know, what is that word? Risque, maybe, the stuff that's in there. So guess what? You guys, if you want to find out what is in that chapter, chapter 38, you guys are going to have to read it for yourself. Okay? But we're in chapter 39. Last week we talked about the sibling rivalry between the Jacob's sons. And now Joseph, one of Jacob's favorite sons, here is now in Egypt, because remember he got sold to slavery and he ends up in Egypt. And it says, now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him there. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered. And he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found his favor in his eyes and became his attendant. And Potiphar put him in charge of his household and entrusted his care to everything he owned. Now here's this situation. Remember that Joseph, before he had this dream, and he says that, you know, the sheaves bow down. There's 12 sheaves, and 11 bow down to the one. And then he had the dream about the stars and the sun and the moon, where all these bow down to the one. And now this dream is kind of playing out here while Joseph's in Egypt. And I believe that it's because of Joseph's faithfulness to God that he never turned his back no matter what happened that was bad in his life. Now, can you imagine being sold by your own brothers to slavery? I mean, first they wanted to kill you. Maybe death would have been better for some people, you know, to think that, you know, instant death and you don't have to worry about the rest of your life having to be a slave. But Joseph, in all this turmoil that he went through in his life, remained faithful to God. And so now, because of his faithfulness to God, God blessed him. And because of his attitude and everything, this Egyptian master sees that you know, this is a good guy, and he's very wise, and he knows how to handle things. And so he puts Joseph in charge of everything in his household. And see, that's where Satan kind of gets to you. When everything is going good, he's going to try and put another twist to it. He brings temptation. And from that time he was put in charge of his household and all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care with Joseph in charge. He did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. And now Joseph was well built and handsome. Girls, can you imagine? Well built, you know, buff. Okay? So here is this is where Satan gets involved. Okay? He says, now Joseph was well built and handsome. After a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, come to bed with me. But he refused. With me in charge, he told her, my master doesn't concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you're his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. You see, Joseph knew that there had to be some boundaries set, or else he can get into trouble. Now, if you can imagine, this doesn't say about what this wife looked like, but you think, you know, a ruler who had the choice of all the ladies in the area, what kind of woman do you think he would have chosen? He would have probably chosen the most beautiful woman there was. So here, Joseph's in this situation where this beautiful woman probably comes to him and says, come on, let's do the thing, you know? And he said, no way. It's not right. And you know, sometimes in our daily lives, there's temptations that come in our lives, and we have to say, no way. And we have to draw the line, and we have to even step away from that. It says that, you know, he even didn't want to be with her. And one day he went into the house to attend his duties, and none of the household servants were inside. And here's another thing is that, you know, when you are faced with a daily temptation, like Joseph was faced with, you better watch out when you're alone with a person that is after you. Because if you allow this situation, no matter how strong you are, and you say, you know, I'll never do that. But how many times we hear in the news where pastors have been together with their secretary, you know, all day long, and pretty soon this innocent thing, you know, and they go out and pretty soon they fall into temptation. If it can happen to pastors, guess what? It can happen to anybody. Doesn't matter how strong you are in the Lord, if you allow temptation in your life, and you allow Satan to just get a little bit, a foothold of you, he's just going to take a little bit more, a little bit more. Pretty soon you're going to find yourself in a situation that you wish you had never been in. She caught him by his cloak and said, come to bed with me. But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. Man, he just got it. He split. He went as fast as he could because he knew that if he didn't, he probably would have fallen and fell into temptation, and he would have been in trouble. But you know, sometimes when you try to do the right thing, the circumstances, the events that happen play out to be something that seems like it's not in your favor. So it says, when she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand, she knew that she was never going to get this guy, because he knew that he was going to get out of there before he got into trouble. With the cloak in her hand, he had to run out of the house. And she called her household servants. She was mad, basically. Look, she said to them, this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He has come in here to sleep with me. But I screamed. And when he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. She told a big lie. Because a person of Joseph's character knew that he had to get out of there or else something was going to happen. And she kept his cloak beside her until his master came home. Then she told him this story. That Hebrew slave he brought to us came to me to make sport of me. But as soon as I screamed for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. And when his master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, this is how your slave treated me. He burned with anger. And Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was there in prison, see here again, we see Joseph remaining faithful to God, constant. But while Joseph was there in prison, now you think about that situation right now, okay? Here Joseph remained faithful to God, and now he's finding himself in prison. What do you think the guy would say? I must have gone ahead and slept with her and had fun, because here I am in jail anyway. But no, he remained faithful to God, and it says the Lord was with him. He showed kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done to him. You see, because of Joseph's faithfulness and remaining constant with his faithfulness to God, knowing that God had everything under control, and that he would remain faithful to God no matter what happened, even in prison, he was going to serve God. Just like Paul, right? I am in prison. You know, I'm a prisoner, and yet I'm going to remain faithful to God. And Paul had a wonderful ministry while he was in prison.